like, what do you do if you're watching somebody treat their smoking with an antivitamin, with a multivitamin rather than actually?
Then you go to war. Really? I'm not kidding.
Fight them into doing what
Yeah, but you have to, but a war isn't just like you fly into a rage and, you know, throw dishes. It's like, that's not helpful. You know, a war is, okay, you are not going to smoke anymore. And so then you think, okay, well, what do you have to do that? So maybe it's your father. You think, I'm going to call you every day and harass you. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to come over and harass you. And I'm going to burn up all your cigarettes. And then I'm going to get your friends to come over and tell you that you're a bloody idiot. And I'm going to put pressure on you. And your mom's going to help too. And if you don't quit smoking, she's going to leave. It's like, it's life or death.
Yeah.
What's it going to be? Now, you know, you may say you don't want to go to war. You might also say that it's not even your right to go to war.
Yeah.
But if you're faced with a situation where someone you love is engaging in a behavior that's seriously counterproductive, it's like you ratchet up the pressure until they stop, or you can't stand it anymore. And if you can't stand it anymore, you lose. You know, and lots of things are a war. And so you have to be prepared for a war, like, because that's also a variant of being able to say no.
Yeah.
You know,
but you also got to fight it in a way, like, to take it back to your gaming thing, is that, like, you got to fight it in a way that you can continue to have these battles so that it doesn't just become a failed enterprise in the first conversation.
right, you can blow apart the whole relationship. You know, and the person will do that to you too, though. They'll often say, well, if you quit, but if you don't stop biting me, I'm never going to talk to you again.
Yeah.
That's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
So well, you can't be afraid of that sort of thing. It's like, and you can also tell them that, look, that's an inappropriate move.
Yeah.
Because that's like a nuclear, well, it is. It's a nuclear bomb. So you don't bring up the nuclear bombs yet.
Yeah. Or for instance, if a child saying to a parent, the parent will say, look, I don't need to get health tips from you. I'm the parent. I'm telling you what's healthy food to eat or whatever.
Well, Jesus, you should be able to respond to that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just an entry-level volley, that. It's like, you're the parent. Oh, well, hey, that's a brilliant observation.
Yeah. But then beyond that, they would say, well, these issues or whatever, concerning my personal romantic sexual life, that, like, I'm not comfortable sharing things with you, so I
Yeah, well, you could tell them you're not comfortable living with the consequences of their stupid decisions, and you're stuck with it too. Because, you know, the person will say, well, this is me. Well, yeah, right, except you're connected to, he's connected to your mother, let's say, and they're both connected to you, and they're all connected to their friends. It's like, sorry, this isn't just about you. You know, if you were on an island, well, even then it wouldn't just be about you, but it would be more about you, so that's just weak argumentation, you know. And what people will do when you're having a war with them is they'll have like 10 or 11 pre-prepared responses. They're always cliches, you know, and so you just back them away. They're just cliches. It's like, okay, well, first of all, we're going to get through the cliches. Well, then what happens? Then they get mad, and then they'll stomp away, and then they'll cry. It's like, if you can get through all that, well, then maybe you can have a discussion, you know, and then but you've got to think it through. Do you actually care if your person is smoking themselves to death? You know, of course, I love them. It's like, yeah, sure you do, maybe. It's like, why is it important to you? Why does it matter? Why is it worth going to war about? And you need to know that. You need to know it, and you have to be able to tell the person. You know, and if you can tell them that, if you can really figure it out, and you can really tell them, then sometimes they'll listen, because they don't want to know that they're tearing you apart. You know, and they're going to do everything not to see that. It's my problem. It's like, yeah, well, I wish it was your problem, because then I wouldn't have to worry about it. But unfortunately, you know, or fortunately, we're tied together at the bottom of a barrel. So, you know, we better figure out how to deal with this. So it's a very hard thing to do, you know. And it's way better to address those things before they become catastrophic. Because by the time they've got to the point where it's a 15-year problem, it's like, Jesus, you're dealing with a very large Tiamat at that point. You know, so one of the things I really like about the Mesopotamian creation myth is that it tells you what happens if you muck around. You know, it says, because remember, the Mesopotamian gods, they kill Apsu, right? That's the structure they all rest on. So it's just a sort of a hollow, stale shell now. And nothing's alive and being fixed. No one's paying attention. What happens? Well, the longer that goes on, the bigger the monster that makes its appearance. You know, and you can easily be in a situation where the monster that people are hiding from is so damn big, you may not have the skills to kill it. So, you know, even remember Horus, when he goes off after Seth, he loses an eye. It's like, it's no joke. You know, and he's a god, and he wins, and he still loses an eye. So, you know, with someone who's smoking, you know, one of the things you may have to confront is their absolute cynicism about life. Seriously thought through. And there's plenty of reasons to be cynical about life and resentful and full of hate and all of those things, you know. So the bigger the war, the clearer the head. You know, because you're going to find the monsters underneath the problem, and they're usually archetypal. You know, I've been in lots of situations with my clients where the only language that could be used to describe what was going on was religious, because the problems were so deep, like they're so good against evil, that there isn't any other language that's even close to powerful enough. And that's usually what happens in households where there's a truly homicidal battle going on, like a deep Oedipal problem, for example. Were you in my personality class?
No, I wasn't, but I watched a bunch of them.
Did you watch Crumb?
No.
Oh yeah, that's intense. If you want to see psychological reality of the kind you wouldn't see normally unless you were a clinician, and like a clinician was really into the situation, Crumb will tell you.
It's available online?
You probably have to rent it.
Okay.
But the pathology in that family is archetypal. and it's rough.
I was so ready to give up. I literally was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's a brilliant documentary. Well, the guy that made the documentary knew the family.
Oh, really?
Yes, beforehand, so they let him in. You know, and they were also
Like,
narcissistic.
the progression? So like he knew them for a really long time?
Yeah,
That's kind of like what a monstrous anima looks like, right? In a way.
yeah,
Like
it's
he
a
would-
lot like that.
He had like this. He had this very large, like, clingy mother. All of his
She wasn't sort of like it.
And so all of his drawings were like of these monstrous, like, oh,
Monstrous women.
Yeah.
With him as a parasitical appendage. Right? That's the Freudian story, boy. If you don't think that's real, you haven't looked at any pathological families. Because it's real, you know, Freud's claim was that's the first battle that people fight. If you lose, think about it. Here's some battles. And then you gotta make friends. You're thinking about one or both parents that is bloody well doing everything it is because you're screwed. And it's worse even because the reason you don't win is because there's something about one or both parents that is bloody well doing everything it possibly can to make sure that you don't win. And you think, well, that's pretty dark. Who would ever believe that? But it's like, if you failed in your life in a serious way, you know, and you're resentful and irritable and miserable about it, what makes you think you're going to facilitate your child's success? What makes you think you're going to be able to stand to see someone thrive where you failed? It's like, yeah, right. If you were that kind of saint, you wouldn't fail to begin with. Not in that particular way. So, you know, families can be just cope with it and you're really tired. Complex hypothesis, but the hypothesis fundamentally